When last did you come to Eyethu Cinema, and how do you feel right now?
You know, the last time I came to this fantastic place was in almost early 80s. I think it must have been about 40 years ago when we had our last performance in this place. And you know, strangely, when I walked in here, I was gripped by the emotion of this space. It meant so much. It felt like, you know, our spirit is in this space. Most of the people that came to perform here, that is the people that I remembered. I mean, my colleagues Selbin Tuli, Alec Kaudi, Montin Demande, and Arthur Afapa. We used to fill up this place like it was nobody else's venue but ourselves. So we had a great relationship with Babu Shabalala, the late patriarch of this family, you know. And he loved us so much that every time we had a show, and if someone would book us out, he'd be the first one to say, no, I want my boys in this place. At Eyethu. Wow. You know where I'm standing? This is where we used to stand to try and get dressed before we worked on stage, and we would be peeping through the curtains to see how many people were in there. That's fantastic. You know, the stage here is quite enormous. Not many stages are this big because many of the halls that were built were quite smaller. And this enables us to put on an orchestra. I remember, we rehearsed, we practiced here with Brick Banton. Brick Banton came here and he was sitting over there while we were learning his songs. He was chuffed by a drum.
Who's we?
The Beaters at that time. And had to practice his background band, and we had this fantastic trumpeter who was also a student at Orlando High, Banza Khaswane, who came from Alexander. And I remember Brooke Benton's musical director asking questions in this particular space. Where does this boy come from? Did he ever study in America? And because Banza and all those people were taught by giants. And so for us to be on this space, there are just all the great memories of having to have, Prevention. I mean, here we brought, you know, what was also very interesting about the Beaters? The Beaters were always ahead of everybody else because we would bring white bands on this place. Like we brought Freedom's Children, we brought Hawk, we brought the Trogs from England, we brought in Freedom's Children. Did I mention them? There was Hawk, there was and we brought the Flames. We brought Steve Fatah from the Flames. Now, what was very interesting about Steve Fatah coming to play here with us is that they had a very big white following. So when they knew that we were playing here, the Randale Mill obviously carried the story that Steve Fatah was going to be performing at Soweto. This place was half full of white people who were not allowed to come here. And when we started advertising, there was a front page story of white fans who had come to see Steve Fatah here in the front page of the Rand Daily Mail. And of course the security police didn't like that. They came here while we were, writing banners for another show that would have the following week. They came to us and said, this show is not going to take place because you bring white people to this venue. And they showed us the Rand Daily Mail. And of course, Bab Shabalala had the most powerful influence on these people. He just warned them that they can't stop the show because people have already booked out. They loved him, they respected him, and the show went on. That's how fantastic Eyethu was. The Beaters were the first musical group to perform on the stage because of the relationship that we had with the Shabalala family, especially the manager who was here, who was Selby's brother-in-law, Selby Ntuli's brother-in-law. And
What's his name?
well, we called them the Mahlanza brothers. He was, if I can't remember his first name, but he was Mahlanza. And he was Zander's brother, Alexander's brother, who was a big fan. And so, because of the relationship that we had with him as Selby's brother-in-law, it was easier for us to access this space for a big concert. And I think because they wanted to open this place, the Beatles were the first group to come in and play and open up here before even the movies were taking place on the stage.
How did it feel to be the biggest black rock band in a township, in the biggest township in the continent?
Well, being a first black rock band in the township was one of the most fascinating experiences. I think we modeled ourselves on mostly the bands that we used to bring here, and we felt ourselves as a competitive band against the white rock bands that were big at that particular time, you know. And we drew the biggest crowds. I mean, we were performing crowds. We even invited Lionel Peterson, who was with the band called The Invaders, to be our lead singer. I mean, when we did a song called, people would come here to listen to Genesis, to listen to Lionel Peterson sing Genesis. And Joe Cocker's, the Beatles song called Try a Little Help for My Friends, With a Little Help for My Friends. And then, of course, all the other township bands started emulating what we're doing, the Young Lovers, and we competed against the In-Laws, the All-Rounders, the Anchors. I don't even remember if the Movers performed here. I know that the Movers performed in the Mofolo Hall, but we were mostly what you'd consider the resident band of Eyethu. Being a resident band alongside the great Gibson Kente, the two of us, him as the greatest playwright and the Beatles as the biggest band here, with the almost like custodians of this space, because this is where we would always be found to be performing anywhere outside other places more than Eyethu. So Rakib and us were like the draw cards of this space.
How did it feel? What did it mean to you symbolically?
Symbolically, it meant that mostly we attracted the young. Of course, we were also a young band at that time, and mostly were young students from all the high schools around, and some of them from university. So when they came back home, the first thing that they would want to see is the Beatles on stage. We introduced some of the singers, like Sipho, like Joe. They would come onto the stage and of course, I think one of the last people we saw performing on the stage was the great Brenda Fassie. She packed up this place, and there was a guy called Shumi. He did a song called Alvina, which nobody believed any South African could sing, and he killed it in the space. Still today, people remember Shumi having sang Alvina with Brenda Fassie. He probably stole the show from Brenda, though.
Where's Shumi now?
Well, unfortunately, we don't know. Many of these guys who've been there have disappeared, like those who've passed on.
Yeah.
The music industry here has not really been a kind career advancing experience for many of our colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah. you know, Eyethu became probably the most important structure in that, besides the one that was in Midlands, Eyethu became the biggest, you know, cinema. And of course, as it has been a cinema, it also allowed live performances. So the community of Soweto knew very well that there was always this venue that they can always go to for theater. They could come to Eyethu for weddings. They could come here for, hey, what was very interesting, you know, Eyethu showed the fight between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. Yes.
Rumble in the jungle.
No. The first fight where Joe Frazier knocked Ali out. And one great friend of Ali's lost his car. Someone actually committed suicide on that fight that we watched of Ali and Joe Frazier here. And of course, Vusi got married here to a Swazi princess. Vusi Shabalala, Bab Shabalala's son. Vusi got married in this place. It was packed of all the dignitaries. Yes, and he married King Sobuza's daughter. And many of us, of course, at that time, we could not be allowed because we were musicians. But yeah, we were curious people who stood outside to come and experience Vusi's wedding. And one of the most special places, obviously, I'd spoken about was the Brooke Benton performance here. Yeah, I mean, this place represented quite a lot of emotion. It represents quite a lot of affinity with everything that was going on around the townships. We could come here even, you know, what they call Agulalwa. Now, Agulalwa was an overnight kind of performance. And we brought Steve, when we brought Steve Fatah here, I remember because, you know, they used to smoke Zol, and that Zol used to be known as poison. So we had a show here and we called it the Durban Poison Gig.
Rostics, you mentioned Steve Fatah several times. Not everyone the name would resonate with everyone. Tell us why he's important, or why he was important.
You know, I mentioned Steve a lot because Steve was a high-profile South African musician from Durban that broke all barriers. A lot of people would have imagined that he was a white musician, but Steve was not. He was a person of color. And as people of color, the Flames led the whole of South African music scene with the first group that introduced R&B, soul music. And when they did that soul music, the Flames became the big thing. And for us, that we established a relationship with Steve Fatah. So we brought him here. If they are going to break it down and they want to create a museum, it will be very interesting what it is they are going to retain, because when you start talking museum, you talk about retention of very important parts of a building. So either they retain the facade, which is the front entrance of the venue, what everybody knows, but maybe the stage as well. And once they can retain the two, then they are able to maybe minimize part of the sitting space to recreate a performance venue. Because without a sad thing about businesses, to them art is not part of an important sector of what they do. And I'd be very disappointed if the family decided not to retain what is central to this place, which was the facade and the stage where we performed. It would be a very sad indictment on the Shabalala family. What you do with this building, maybe some of the bricks that were laid to build Eyethu should be part of what is retained as part of this development that will take place here. We don't want them to break the bricks and throw them away, because it's very important that these bricks represent what the Eyethu cinema would have been at a particular time, at a point in history.
I'm a child in the 60s and 70s. Kahle, showbiz was a hobby. It was excitement, and of course, being able to be in that excitement and do whatever you could do. Uyazi, mina, I was a model, ramp model, photographic model, actress, singer, dancer.
Wow.
I've done it all. I've been through the meal, sweetheart. I did it all. And not because I wanted to be professional. It was fun. Because in the old God, do you know my parents didn't want me to be in this industry, in the entertainment business? They actually chased me away from home. They wanted me, you know, abazali, to have a profession. You must be a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, social worker, you know, no. So there I went, I went all through all that to please them. School yes, mama mina ngifuna ukuyocula what yini what you know, to be a singer, to go on stage, what no, you cannot. And during that time, Dolly Ratebe, Dorothy Masuko were appearing on drum magazine covers. Ngama bikini, you understand? So you can imagine ngama bikini that time. I remember so Dolly aiming a bikini kanje, stunningly. What? Ufuna kanje? Namantombazana angalali la, ahamba namadoda ubusuku bonke. Sibongile, is this what? Spend imali engaka. I was at Kilnerton Training Institute, then the best schools then. Not the model C's of that time, Kilnerton, St. Peter's and St. Thomas. Those were the schools. Your parents could afford. And how much were they? £25 a year.
Sure.
Only. But then it was a lot of money. So I spent imali at your train, I can't just but if ufuna ukwenza lento, boom, endlini yethu. And that time again, because during school vacations at Kilnerton, we used to meet in a gang at St. Peter's. St. Peter's, they had this band. Father Huddleston had bought them instruments, the Father Huddleston Jazz Band. So they would, during holidays, they would, perform at the BMSC, Bantuman Social Center, just Olive Street Extension. And so they would perform, and there was a very good mutual friend of ours, Uvandile Balo, who was used to Miriam. Miriam guy kantina incidentally wake wangene eKilnerton behlala ePretoria. So and she was singing with the Boston Brothers. Yena sokudala waphuma esikoleni because Miriam, Dorothy, Dolly, Thandi Klasini phela bosisi ukuthi yo bheka lo sisi lo ngifuna ukufana nalo. Mina I admired Dolly Ratebe because I thought she has deep voice, and I think I can sing like her. Nasesikolweni makungama concert senza shows, I was always the lead singer. And then at Dorothy, I used to love Dorothy's song Suga lapha undifakela amabhadi, Suga lapha uzondifakela amabhadi, Suga lapha uzondifakela isinyama, Suga lapha. Can you see that jazz inclined American feel? Umbhaqanga wethu was very, 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 very much jazz inclined. It had the jazz feel because all we could hear and listen to on the long playing records was jazz. So we got in our Ella Fitzgerald. I could sing most of Ella's songs, because jazz was the thing. That's why sometimes when Abigail did jazz singing, I'm not jazz singer, I'm a singer. Okay. So yonke lonto lo it influenced us. Njengoba ngisho ngithi ekhaya banxosha. Ngitshela uVandi introduced me to the Father Huddleston, Abu Hugh Lab. So during vacations, I'm a Manhattan Brothers, the Pimble Dambuza Mdlele, the In Sports. There were more vocal groups than anything, even the bands. Yo, there was music in the air. There was music everywhere. We had big bands, small bands, groups, singing groups, male groups, female groups, Dark City Sisters, Hotel Queens. No, the Hotel Queens came much, much later.
Okay.
At Durban, we had Opeti Koza and her group, you know, Joyce Mohatusi. I remember Joyce's song, you know, we had Msagazo, the only radio we had, it's Zonki Zing. Msagazo Fana Yekoni in Lapayana, and you would only get one station, volume off, So, Msagazo, Joyce Konalitula, Vugani, Segu, Sile Madoda, Vugani Madoda, Segu, Sile Madoda. And Ubabu Stanley Nkosi, bless his soul, he's late now, used to play that song. And we brought together Abantu musically. We sang for them or to them with songs that had messages about it. Everybody did their part to have the country we have today. Everybody, small or big, but it contributed. The politicians spoke. That's a fire time, Mtanan. Wow. You know, when there was a curfew law, 9 o'clock, no blacks in town. You know what we did? All right, we'll move out of town. That is how and when Shebeens were born. Shebeens were not killer places. Shebeens were not taverns lapha abantwana bayakhona baphuza mabeqede barepe babulawe. There were social houses where people met to enjoy, to discuss, and to plan the future. The politicians that were underground would sneak in. So there was a famous Shebeen Esopha down 39 steps. We had 39 steps to get to the entrance, but who cared? Bebes nyuka. Mawufika lapho. Oh, social gathering. Dignified people. You would find the politicians. You would find musicians. You would find the journalist of note, Net Nakasa, all of them. Block Medisan. Gordon Siwani, you'll find them there. And then you'd find the gangsters. Not to come and kill people.
Space.
Oh yes. Meeting, enjoying. The politicians brought the stories, the news, to the journalists. The journalists wrote. Us, the musicians, would sing, entertain them, stand up and sing. The gangsters, because they had the money, they would say, fill up the table and buy every kind of liquor in the house for everyone. They would say, on Steelney, we repossess, we take what belongs to us and then come and give it to our people. Can you find that today? Can you find that today? No. It was so loving, so harmonious, so together. Ubuntu. That's when we were talking about Ubuntu. Not talking about it, actually practicing it, doing it. And I don't think some people know what Ubuntu is, what they're talking about. By actually Ubuntu. And they're not practicing it. That's life, my baby. I wish I could take a night train and go to the past. A night one. That's how beautiful life was. Oh, it was wonderful. But it's going to come back. With people like you doing this, Izowalembiu.
You know, Eyethu, if you cracked going to backstage, you were very lucky, you know, to go and see Brenda Fassie. I've watched Brenda Fassie, and I was just Mavis. I was show me performing at Eyethu, and I think this particular Miss Soweto, I went and bought this dress because there was going to be Miss Soweto. And I was invited by Ubud Leonard and Ubud Sem Mangwani. And there I had this dress, which I paid in 3 or 4 installments. And I forgot to take the tag out. The dress was 5,000 rands. And I went to Soweto. And because I was one of the guests, you know, important guests, I took that picture there. And my mother actually beat me up that why did I buy a dress for 5,000 rands? But hell, I was going to Eyethu. I was going to be one of the important guests for Miss South Africa. So thanks to people like Ralph, you know, but Sam, as I said, but Leonard, because every big function and a very important function for us in Soweto was held at Eyethu. So I get really goose flesh and the lump on my throat to know that that very iconic place is going to be no more. Can we rethink this? But if it's for the good, for the community, it's okay. But I'm still saying, let's preserve it or incorporate it. We've come a long way, guys, when there was nothing for us to perform at.